My daughter-in-law threw out my dishes and said, "They were old." What I did next left her speechless. I walked into the kitchen and saw my dinnerware in the trash. My daughter-in-law said to me, "Ma, they were old. I bought new things." I looked at her calmly and replied, "Well, you'll be using those in your new house because you aren't staying here anymore." It was time to remind her who pays the bills around here. I know what you're thinking. It sounds harsh, right? A mother-in-law kicking her daughter-in-law to the curb. But let me tell you what truly happened that Tuesday morning when everything I had put up with for 8 months finally exploded. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. I, Alela Nina Johnson, 68 years old, had just woken up in my own home. Well, technically it was my home because it hadn't felt like mine in a long time. I went downstairs like every morning with my sheepskin slippers squeaking against the ceramic tile floor. I was thinking about making myself a slow drip coffee, the kind I like to sip while watching the sunrise from the kitchen window. My little ritual of peace before the daily chaos began. But when I pushed open the kitchen door, something was different. The trash can was open and peeking over the edge. I saw a flash of cobalt blue that made my heart stop. I approached slowly, barely breathing. And there it was. My dishes. Not just any dishes. My blue porcelain dinnerware with gold trim. The one my husband Robert gave me on our wedding day 45 years ago. The dishes we celebrated Scott's, my son's first birthday, with. The dishes we used to host my parents for the last Christmas before they passed away. The dinnerware that has that small chip on one of the plates because Robert dropped it while washing up and swore to me he would never break anything of mine again. I never fixed it. That chip was part of our history, and now it was in the trash amongst eggshells and used napkins. I pulled out a plate with trembling hands. My heart was pounding so hard I felt the pulse in my temples. How had it gotten there? Who had dared? "Oh, Ma, you're awake already." Carly's voice sliced through me like a cold knife. I turned around. There she was, my daughter-in-law, in her pink satin pajamas and her hair perfectly brushed, even though it was barely 7 o'clock in the morning. Always impeccable, always in control. Carly. My voice came out weaker than I would have liked. "Why are my dishes in the trash?" She didn't even blink. She poured herself a glass of water from the new filter system she had installed without asking me, and looked at me with that smile I knew too well, that smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that. Yes, Ma." Well, they were really old. Look, they were even chipped. I went to the mall yesterday and bought a new set. Much more modern. See? She gestured toward the cupboard. There, where my blue plates used to live, now sat a minimalist white set. Cold, without history, without soul. But Carly, that dinnerware was from my wedding. You didn't have the right to. "Oh, Ma, don't get all dramatic. They were just an old set of dishes. Besides, the house needed an update. Scott's in agreement too. It's already the middle of 2025. We can't live surrounded by antiques." Antiques, she called 45 years of my life antiques. I felt something break inside me, but it wasn't my heart. It was something deeper. It was the last thread of patience I had left. Because those dishes in the trash weren't just broken porcelain. They were the perfect symbol of everything that had happened in the last 8 months since Carly and Scott temporarily moved into my house. If you want to know how a 68-year-old woman, a retired accountant, the owner of her own house, ended up feeling like an intruder in her own home, stick with me because this story is just beginning. And what I discovered after those dishes in the trash was much worse than I imagined. But before I continue, if stories like this touch your heart, subscribe to the channel. Here we share real stories of women who found their strength when all seemed lost. Now then, let me tell you how we got to that cursed Tuesday. Because to understand why that dinnerware was the straw that broke the camel's back, you need to know what happened before. You need to know the mistake I made. The mistake of trusting too much. And it all started 8 months ago with a phone call that would change my life forever. 8 months before finding my dinnerware in the trash, I received a call that broke my heart. It was Scott, my only son. My boy. Well, not so much a boy anymore. 32 years old, 22, a civil engineer, married to Carly for 3 years. He was always responsible, hardworking, or so I thought. Mom, I need to talk to you. His voice sounded broken, tired. I knew immediately that something bad had happened. Tell me, son, what is it? I was laid off. The construction company went bankrupt. They left all of us without severance, without anything. And Carly is 6 months pregnant. My blood ran cold. My son without a job, a granddaughter on the way. What mother wouldn't do anything? What do you need? I asked without hesitation. There was a long, too long silence. Mom, I know this is a lot to ask, but could we stay with you for a few months? Just until I find another job. We're behind on the rent. They're going to kick us out of the apartment. Carly can't work because of the high-risk pregnancy. And come, I didn't let him finish. This is your house. It always has been. I heard his sigh of relief. Then Carly's voice in the background, sharp and excited. She said, Yes. Oh, thank you, Ma. I hung up the phone with a tight heart, but full of purpose. Of course I would help them. Scott was my blood. And that baby on the way would be my first granddaughter. My family needed me. I spent that whole week preparing the guest room. I changed sheets, took out clean towels, bought diapers and baby clothes. I even painted one of the walls with a mural of clouds and stars, thinking of my future granddaughter. They arrived on a Sunday afternoon with 2 suitcases and many promises. It'll only be 2 months maximum, Mom. You'll see. I'll find something soon, Scott assured me while bringing up the boxes. Carly hugged me. She smelled of expensive perfume, too expensive for someone with no income. Oh, Ma, you don't know how much we appreciate this. I promise we won't be a bother. How naive I was to believe her. The first few days were normal. Scott left early to drop off Razumiumis. Carly rested because of her pregnancy. I cooked for the 3 of us, happy to have the house full again. Since I was widowed 7 years ago, silence had become my only companion. But the signs started soon. First, it was the curtains. One Tuesday, I arrived home from the supermarket, and the beige curtains in the living room were gone. In their place hung dark gray ones that made everything look like a funeral. Oh, Ma, the others were so faded. I bought these on sale, Carly said as if it were nothing. Then it was the sofa. She moved it without asking me why. The light comes in better this way. The sofa where Robert and I watched the evening news every night. The sofa where I rocked Scott when he was a baby. Then it was the music. Carly would play loud hip-hop while I tried to read. When I asked her to turn it down, she would sigh as if I were a bitter old woman. The baby needs stimulation. Ma, I read it in a book and I stayed quiet because they needed support because they were my family. Because a mother doesn't abandon her son in the storm. But the storm was just beginning and I didn't know that the one who would end up drowning was me. 2 months turned into 3. 3 into 4. And little by little, my house stopped being mine. But the worst was yet to come. No one warns you when you stop being the owner of your own house. There isn't an exact moment. It's like sand slipping through your fingers. One day you have control and the next you wake up a visitor in your own home. That's what happened to me. By the 4th month, Carly no longer asked permission for anything. She just did it. One Saturday, I came home from the farmer's market with my bags of vegetables and almost fell over from the shock. All the living room furniture was piled up in the hallway. My mahogany bookshelf, my wedding photos, the sideboard I inherited from my grandmother. What is going on? I asked with a racing heart. Carly appeared from the living room with a tape measure in her hand. Oh, Ma, good thing you're here. Look, I hired a guy to help us take these pieces down to the basement. With the baby. We're gonna need more space. I'm gonna put a playpen here and a rocker there. Doesn't that sound perfect? She wasn't asking me. She was informing me. But Carly, this furniture has sentimental value. It can't go to the basement. It will be ruined by the humidity. She looked at me with that expression. I already knew that mixture of pity and impatience. Ma, understand we're not in the 80s anymore. These pieces are very old-fashioned. Besides, what good is it to keep nice things locked away? The baby needs space. And she called the young man who was waiting outside. Between the two of them, they began taking my memories down to the damp basement while I watched them helplessly, the market bag still in my hands. That night, I cried in my room. But I didn't say anything because Scott was working late looking for jobs because Carly was pregnant, and I didn't want to cause her stress because I was the mother-in-law, the one who had to endure everything for the good of the family. In the 5th month, Carly's mother arrived without warning. I was preparing dinner when I heard the door open, women's voices, laughter. I walked into the living room, and there she was, a woman with huge sunglasses and a travel bag. "Oh, Mommy!" Carly shouted excitedly. "Look, I'd like to introduce you to my mom, Mrs. Evelyn. She's going to stay for a few days to help me with the pregnancy, Mrs." Evelyn extended her hand to me half-heartedly without taking off her glasses. "Nice to meet you. Carly has told me so much about you." "Nothing good, I bet," I thought. "Of course." "Welcome," I said, forcing a smile. A few days turned into 2 weeks. Mrs. Evelyn took over the remote control, criticized my cooking, and left her things scattered all over the house. And worst of all, she filled Carly's head with ideas. "Honey, why don't you ask your mother-in-law to give you the master bedroom? Your room is too small for the baby." "Mom," I already told her, but she says it was her marital room. "Oh, but your mother-in-law is all alone. What does she need all that space for? Besides, when you lend your house, you should do it completely, right?" I heard everything from the kitchen, my hands submerged in soapy water, washing the dishes they had left dirty. I took a deep breath. "Don't say anything, Alela Nena. Don't cause trouble." But the trouble was already here, living in my living room, sleeping in my guest room, breathing my air. And when Mrs. Evelyn finally left, she left behind something worse than her suitcase. She left Carly convinced that I should yield more, that my house should be completely hers. In the 6th month, Scott found a job. Part-time, low pay, but it was something. I thought they would leave soon, but when I brought it up one night during dinner, both of them looked uncomfortable. "Mom, we still can't afford to rent anything decent," Scott said, avoiding my gaze. "And with the baby about to be born, we need to save," Carly added, touching her stomach. "Right, Ma? You understand?" Of course I understood. I understood that they were using me, but my mouth said, "Yes, of course, stay as long as you need." That night, I couldn't sleep because something inside me was screaming that I had lost control, that I had crossed a line from which I could no longer return. But I still didn't imagine how far they would go. Camille was born on a Tuesday morning. I remember every detail of that night. Carly's scream from their room, Scott running for the car keys, me with my heart in my throat helping her down the stairs. At the hospital, I waited 8 hours in that cold room that smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. And when they finally let me in and I saw that tiny creature wrapped in pink blankets with her little hands and closed eyes, the world stopped. My granddaughter, the first time I held her. I felt that everything was worth it. All the discomforts, all the sacrifices, all the space I had given up. Nothing mattered compared to that warm weight in my arms. "She's perfect," I whispered, tears falling down my cheeks. Carly looked at me from the hospital bed with a strange smile, as if she had won something. And boy had she won, because from that moment on, Camille became the most powerful weapon Carly had against me. We arrived home 3 days later. I had prepared everything. Diapers, clean clothes, sterilized bottles. I even bought a beautiful wooden crib that I placed in their room. But on the second day, Carly came into the kitchen while I was making breakfast. "Ma, we need to talk." I turned around. She was carrying Camille in her arms, using my granddaughter as a shield. "Tell me. It's about our room. It's too small for the 3 of us. The baby cries at night and we don't have space for all her things. I need you to give me the master bedroom." "The master bedroom? My room? The one I shared with Robert for 35 years. Carly, that room holds so many memories for me. It's where Ma, think about your granddaughter." She interrupted me with a firm voice. "Are you really going to deny this baby a comfortable space? You are alone. I have to take care of a newborn. What's more important? I was speechless. Why? How do you argue against that? How do you say no when they frame it as choosing between your comfort and your granddaughter's well-being? Give me a few days to think about it, I said with a broken voice. Fine, but while you're thinking, the baby is suffering in that tiny room. I barely slept last night. 5 days later, I was sleeping in the small room and Carly had turned my marital room into a baby suite with a crib, changing table, rocker, and even a mini fridge for the bottles. She didn't ask for my help to move my things. One day, I came home from the bank and it was simply done. But that was just the beginning. Ma, why do you cook with so much garlic and onion? It hurts the baby through my milk. Ma, don't wear that perfume. The chemicals affect newborns. Ma, can you turn down the TV volume? The baby needs silence to sleep. Ma, my mom says babies need a constant temperature. Can you leave the air conditioning on all day? I'll pay. Oh, wait, you pay the electricity, but it's for Camille, right? Every request came wrapped in the name of my granddaughter. And I accepted everything because every time I saw that perfect little face, every time Camille grabbed my finger with her hand or gave me a gummy smile, I melted. Carly knew it, and she used it. In the 7th month, I had to give up my sewing room. That room where I spent my afternoons repairing clothes, where I kept my antique Singer machine, my fabrics, my patterns, my space of peace. We need a playroom for when Camille grows up, Carly said one Sunday while we had coffee. She's already 2 months old and will soon need early stimulation. Your workshop can wait, right, Ma? I packed my machines in boxes, put my fabrics in plastic bags, and took everything down to the damp basement where my grandmother's furniture already was. That night, I sat on the edge of my new bed in what used to be the guest room and saw myself in the mirror across the way. A 68-year-old woman with whiter hair than before, with deep circles under her eyes, living as a guest in the house she built with 40 years of work. How had I ended up here? Scott worked so much that I barely saw him. When I mentioned something about Carly, he would say, Mom, she just wants what's best for Camille. You want that too, right? And I would nod because I did want what was best for my granddaughter, but no one ever asked what was best for me. And then came that cursed Tuesday, the day of the dishes in the trash, the day that something inside me finally said, enough! There I was, standing in front of the trash can with that cobalt blue plate trembling in my hands. 45 years of marriage reduced to waste. Carly was still there, drinking her water as if nothing had happened, as if she had just thrown away an old newspaper. Not the memories of my entire life. You know what, Ma? You should be thanking me. Those dishes made the kitchen look so old-fashioned. Now everything looks cleaner, more modern. I even took photos for my Instagram. Look. She showed me her phone. There they were. Photos of my kitchen with the new dishes with a caption that read, Refreshing Spaces. Sometimes you have to let go of the old to welcome the new. 52 comments, all telling her how lovely it looked. No one knew that the old she had let go of were my memories, that every plate of that set had a history. This dinnerware, I said with a trembling voice, was given to me by my husband on our wedding day. We ate our first breakfast as a married couple on these plates. We celebrated Scott's first birthday with this set. The last Christmas with my parents was served here. Carly rolled her eyes. Oh, Ma, they're just plates. You can't live in the past. Robert died 7 years ago. Your parents, too. Scott's an adult. Life goes on. And this house needed an update. Just plates. Robert is dead. As if love could be erased by death. As if memories were worthless. I pulled another plate out of the trash. It had coffee grounds stuck to it. They had used it that same morning and then thrown it away as if it were disposable. See this chip? I pointed to the edge of the plate. Your husband, my son Scott, was 3 years old. Robert was washing the dishes after dinner. This plate slipped. He was so scared he almost cried. He told me, Honey, forgive me, I broke your wedding plate. And I told him it didn't matter that accidents happen. I never fixed it because that chip reminded me that nothing has to be perfect to be valuable. Carly sighed with exasperation. Ma, are we seriously going to make a scene over a chipped plate? Look, if it matters that much, keep that one. I threw the rest away. The garbage truck comes in 1 hour. 1 hour. I had 1 hour to rescue 45 years of my life before they ended up in the municipal dump. I knelt down in front of the can. I started taking out the dishes one by one. 8 plates, 6 bowls, 4 cups, the large soup tine, the small creamer, all stained with trash covered in eggshells and food scraps. Carly watched me from above with her arms crossed. "Oh, Ma, are you really going to take that out? It's all dirty." Yes, I was going to take it out piece by piece because this dinnerware wasn't trash. This dinnerware was me. It was my history. It was the proof that I had existed, had loved, had built a family, and someone had thrown it away as if it were worthless. I finished taking everything out. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating so hard I felt the pulse in my ears. I stood up slowly, very slowly, because something inside me was changing. Something that had been asleep for 8 months was finally waking up. I looked Carly directly in the eyes. This dinnerware is worth more than all your new things put together because this dinnerware has a soul. It has history. It has love. You know what your white plates have? Nothing. They are as empty as you are. Carly's eyes widened in surprise. She had never heard me speak like that. Excuse me? I don't excuse you. Not anymore. I took my dishes to the sink and started washing them piece by piece, carefully with respect. Carly remained standing there, not knowing what to say. For the first time in 8 months, she wasn't in control of the situation. And while I was washing those trash-covered plates, while I was cleaning off the dirt she had put on them, I made a decision. This had just become a war, and I didn't plan on losing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed sitting in the bed of the small room, my room now, with the lights off, watching through the window how the moon illuminated the garden that Robert and I planted so many years ago. The clean dishes rested in a box beside me. I had dried them with the same care you hold a newborn. Each piece represented something Carly had tried to erase. But I wasn't stupid. The dinnerware wasn't the real problem. The problem was that I had become a stranger in my own house, and worst of all, I had allowed it. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I turned on the bedside lamp. I took a green folder from the drawer where I kept all my important documents. I needed to see things clearly, with numbers, with facts. The deed to the house in my name. I paid for it with 40 years of work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Every dollar of this property came from my effort, my sleepless nights, my sacrifices. I opened my bank statement. I started adding up expenses from the last 8 months. Electricity, $1,890 a month. For 8 months, $15,120. The consumption had tripled since they arrived. Air conditioning all day for Camille. Lights on in every room because Carly was afraid of the dark. Water $640 a month, $5,120 in total. Carly showered twice a day. The washing machine ran daily with small loads because she didn't like mixing the baby's clothes with anything else. Gas. $1,200 monthly. $9,600 accumulated. Carly cooked at all hours and left the stove on so the water for the bottles would always be ready. Internet, $599 a month, $4,792. She used it to watch her series while Camille slept and upload photos of my remodeled house to Instagram. Groceries? I paid for everything. An average of $350 weekly for 4 people. $11,200 in 8 months. Carly asked for expensive brands, organic baby products, things I never bought when I lived alone. I added everything up. I stared at the final number without being able to breathe. $142,632. In 8 months, I had spent almost $143,000 supporting 3 people who treated me like a servant in my own house. And what had Scott contributed? $150 bi-weekly when he could, $300 a month. 2 went $400 in 8 months at most. And Carly, 0. Absolutely nothing. Not $1, not one genuine gesture of gratitude. I kept looking through papers. I found the receipt for the new dishes, $1,850 purchased at Macy's with home delivery. But wait, I looked closer. The payment method said Visa card ending in 40829. I didn't have any card ending in 40829. I checked my complete statements, and there it was. A charge of $1,850 at Macy's 3 weeks ago on my credit card, the one I had kept in the drawer of my desk in the master bedroom, the room that was now Carly's. The air went out of my lungs. Carly had used my card without permission. She had gone into my desk, taken my card, and bought new dishes to replace mine with my own money. That wasn't a lack of respect. That was theft. I got up from the bed shaking, not from fear, from rage. I walked back and forth in the small room, trying to process what I had just discovered. How many other times had she used my card? What else had she bought with my money? I checked all the transactions from the last few months, and there they were. Charges I didn't recognize. Clothes at H&M, makeup at Sephora, decorations at Home Depot, shoes at DSW. It all added up to $3,400 extra. Carly had been stealing from me for months, and I hadn't noticed. Because I trusted, because they were family, because you don't keep watch over your own flesh and blood. I sat down on the floor with all the paper scattered around me. Tears began to fall, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of clarity. I finally saw the truth. Scott and Carly weren't here temporarily. They weren't saving to leave. They were using me as a free hotel while spending my money on luxuries. And when they had nothing left to take from me, they would leave me alone again. But this time, without a house, without savings, without dignity. That was not going to happen. I looked at the clock. 4:30 in the morning. The bank would open in 3 hours. And I had calls to make because if 40 years of working with numbers taught me anything, it's this. You always have to have evidence before acting, and I already had all the evidence I needed. But before making any legal move, I needed to be completely sure of one thing. I needed to know if Scott and Carly really saw me as family, or if I was just a source of resources. I needed one final test that would remove any doubt, any guilt, because suspecting is one thing and knowing for sure is quite another. So, 2 days after finding the charges on my card, I decided to run an experiment. A painful one, but necessary. It was Thursday morning. Scott had already left for work. Carly was in the living room watching videos on her phone while Camille slept in the playpen. I approached slowly, putting my hand to my chest. I let my breathing become a little labored. I leaned against the door frame. "Carly," I said with a weak voice. She didn't even look up from her phone. "What is it, Ma?" "I don't feel well. My chest hurts really badly. I can't breathe well." Now she looked at me, but with annoyance, not concern. "Oh, Ma, with your aches again. It's probably just acid reflux." "Drink some chamomile tea." "No, Carly, this is different. The pain goes all the way up my left arm. My father died of a heart attack, and I'm scared." I let myself collapse onto the sofa, really acting out the pain because I needed to see how far her indifference would go. Carly sighed. She got up from the sofa reluctantly. "And what do you want me to do? I can't take you to the doctor. I have to watch Camille. Please, can you call Scott or can you take me and the baby comes with us? I really feel very ill." Carly checked her phone. She made a face of annoyance. "Oh no, Ma. Today is Thursday. I'm meeting my friends for lunch at 12 o'clock. I haven't left this house in 2 weeks. You can't ask me to cancel." I stared at her, hoping it was a joke, hoping she would say, "Just kidding, of course I'll take you." But she didn't. "Carly, I'm telling you, my chest hurts. It could be a heart attack." "Oh, Ma, don't be dramatic. If it were a heart attack, you'd be lying on the floor. Besides, you've always been so healthy. It's probably stress or something you ate. Rest for a bit, and if it doesn't go away, call a taxi. I really can't cancel. My friends are already on their way." She turned and went upstairs to get ready. I remained seated there, my hand still on my chest, processing what had just happened. It wasn't acting anymore. The chest pain was real now, but it wasn't coming from my physical heart. It was coming from the realization that for Carly, Lunch with friends was more important than my life. I waited 5 more minutes. Carly came down perfectly made up with her designer bag that I never knew how she had paid for. Now I knew with my card. "Ma, are you still lying there? I told you to drink some tea and please watch Camille. I'll be back around 5 o'clock. And she left. She left me alone, supposedly with chest pain, to go have lunch with her friends. I stayed motionless for a moment. Then I took out my phone and called the only person I knew would come. "Hello, Elena Nena," answered Mrs. Rodriguez, my lifelong neighbor. "Rodriguez, can you take me to Dr. Smith's office? I don't feel well. I'm on my way right now." 3 minutes later, she was knocking on my door. She helped me into her car and drove to the neighborhood medical office. Dr. Smith, who had known me for 20 years, checked me carefully. High blood pressure, accelerated heart rate, chest tension, alelanina. This is not a heart attack, but it's a serious warning. It's chronic stress anxiety. Your body is asking for help. What is happening in your life? And there in that office that smelled of alcohol and cotton with Mrs. Rodriguez holding my hand, everything came out. I told him about Carly, about the invaded house, about the dishes in the trash, about the stolen money, about this morning when she left me alone thinking I might be dying. "Elena," the doctor said firmly, "if you don't do something soon, the next chest pain will be real. Your body can't take anymore." Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my hand. "Honey, it's time. That girl is slowly killing you, and you are letting her." They were right. Both of them were right. The test was over, and the result was devastating. To Carly, I wasn't family. I was a resource, a free hotel, an open wallet. And Scott, my son, didn't even know what was happening because he was never around. And when he was, he chose not to see. I left that office with a prescription for blood pressure and an absolute certainty in my heart. It was over. My plan would begin tonight because it was no longer just about money or dishes. It was about my life. And I wasn't going to die a stranger in my own house. I arrived home after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Carly still hadn't returned from her lunch with friends. I went straight up to the small room and locked the door. I took out my old hardcover notebook, the kind I use for accounts, and started writing. A plan, step by step. But first, I needed professional help, someone who knew the laws, someone I could trust completely. I dialed a number I had saved for years. "Aunt Lelanina," answered a young, surprised voice. "Valerie, my dear, I need your help." Valerie was my niece, the daughter of my younger sister who passed away 10 years ago. I had supported her with part of her law studies. Now she worked at a firm specializing in family and civil law. "Of course, Aunt." "What's going on? You sound worried. Can you come tomorrow? I need legal advice and I need this to stay between us." There was a pause. Valerie was smart. She immediately understood that something serious was happening. "I'll be there tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Is that okay?" "Perfect. And Valerie, thank you." That night when Carly returned at 8 o'clock, not at 5 o'clock as she had promised, smelling of wine and with shopping bags, I already had half the plan worked out. The next day, Friday, Scott left early. Carly announced that she was going with Camille to her mom's house for a few hours. It was the perfect moment. Valerie arrived punctually. I saw her through the window get out of her car with a professional briefcase, tall hair pulled back, a navy blue pantsuit. The daughter my sister would have been proud to see. I opened the door before she could knock. "Come in quickly." We sat down in the kitchen. I served her coffee and put everything on the table. Bank statements, receipts, the house deed. Photographs of the unauthorized charges on my card. Valerie reviewed everything with a lawyer's eyes. Her expression hardened with each document. "Aunt, this is fraud. Unauthorized use of a credit card. You can file a criminal complaint against Carly. I don't want to put her in jail. I just want them to leave my house and give me back my money. I understand. So, we'll do this." Valerie took out her laptop and started typing. "First, we're going to create an eviction notice. You have every legal right. This is your house. It's in your name. They don't pay rent or have a lease. We'll give them 30 days to vacate. What if they refuse? Then judicial eviction proceeds. But with this document, you have legal backing. Second, you need to block all your cards today. Call the bank and report the unauthorized charges. Won't that get Carly into trouble? Aunt, she's already in trouble. She committed a crime. You're being kind by not reporting her directly to the police. Valerie kept typing. The sound of the keyboard filled the kitchen like a war drum. Third, we're going to calculate everything they owe you. Utilities, food, use of your property. If you want to reach an agreement, you have a legal basis to demand compensation. We spent 3 hours reviewing everything. Valerie drafted an impeccable document, formal but clear. When she finished, she showed it to me. Notice of eviction. It specified that Scott Johnson and Carly Mendez had 30 calendar days to vacate the property located at 45 Maple Drive, Long Island, New York. A copy of the deed and a breakdown of expenses were attached. This has legal weight, Aunt. If you sign it and give it to them with witnesses present, they can't claim later that they didn't know. Witnesses? Yes, I can be one. And we need one more person. Mrs. Rodriguez. I nodded. My neighbor wouldn't hesitate to help me. One more thing, Aunt. Valerie looked at me seriously. Are you ready for this? Because Scott is your son. It's gonna hurt to see him angry. He's gonna say mean things. He's gonna try to make you feel guilty. I was quiet for a moment. I thought about Scott as a baby, as a teenager, about all the times I supported him, hugged him, defended him. But I also thought about the Scott of now, the one who was never around, the one who chose not to see, the one who had left me at the mercy of his wife. I'm ready, I said with a firm voice. I'm not just his mother anymore. I'm also Alela Nena, and Alela Nena deserves respect. Valerie smiled. She squeezed my hand. There's the aunt I know, the one who doesn't let anyone walk all over her. We printed 3 copies of the document. I signed them with a trembling but determined hand. Valerie hugged me before leaving. When you're ready to deliver it, call me. I'll come. I watched her drive away in her car. I went up to my room and locked the documents in my nightstand. The plan was ready. Now only the right moment was missing. But first, I needed to know one last thing. I needed to confirm my suspicions about Scott and Carly's true intentions, and what I'd discovered that same afternoon chilled me to the bone. That same afternoon, while putting away the documents, I heard voices in the garden. I peeked out the window of the small room. Scott had arrived early. He was with Carly next to the fountain that Robert installed years ago. They were talking quietly, but the wind carried fragments of their conversation to my window. Sweetheart, just 6 more months and we'll have enough for the down payment, Carly was saying. Are you sure? My mom has been acting weird lately, Scott replied. Your mom is pure drama. As long as she has Camille nearby, she won't do anything. We have her eating out of our hand. I felt the floor open up beneath me. Still, maybe we should look for something soon. I don't want to take advantage. Scott's voice sounded guilty. Oh, Scott, don't be silly. Your mom lives alone in this huge house. We're doing her a favor by giving her company. Besides, why pay rent when we can save here? In 6 months, we'll save up the $20,000 for the down payment and leave. Easy. $20,000. They wanted to stay 6 more months to save $20,000 while I paid for everything. What if she gets mad? Scott asked. She won't get mad. She's your mom. American mothers put up with everything for their children. Besides, I've already taken about $5,000 from her card and she hasn't even noticed. Scott didn't say anything. He didn't scold her. He wasn't outraged. He just stayed silent. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. My son knew. Maybe not the details, but he knew Carly was using me, and he allowed it. I closed the window with trembling hands. Not from fear, from fury. It was over. I went downstairs. I walked into the garden where they were still talking. I need both of you to come to the living room now. My voice came out so cold that they both turned around in surprise. Mom, what's going on? Scott asked. To the living room now. We went inside. I remained standing. They sat on the sofa, Carly with Camille in her arms. I took out the documents I had printed with Valerie. I placed them on the coffee table. "What is this?" Carly asked, picking one up. I watched as her eyes scanned the lines. How her face went from confusion to shock. Scott read over her shoulder. "Mom, an eviction!" His voice broke. "You have 30 days to find somewhere to live, but why?" Carly stood up. "What did we do?" I looked at her fixedly without blinking. "Are you really going to ask me what you did? Really, Ma? If it's about the dishes, I already apologized. It's not just about the dishes, Carly. It's about everything. For the 8 months you treated me like a free hotel. For changing my house without permission. For kicking me out of my own bedroom. For dismantling my sewing room. For using my credit card without authorization." Carly turned pale. "I didn't. $3,400. I pulled out another document. "That's what you spent on my card without my permission. Here are all the charges. H&M, Sephora, Macy's, Home Depot. Do I need to continue?" "Mom, there has to be a misunderstanding." Scott intervened. "There is no misunderstanding, Scott. I heard you a little while ago in the garden talking about staying 6 more months to save $20,000 using my house as your personal piggy bank." Scott was speechless. Carly started to cry. "Ma, I'm sorry. I just wanted Camille to have a better life at the cost of mine by stealing from me, by using my granddaughter as a shield whenever it suited you. It's not stealing. We're family," Carly shouted. "Family respects one another, Carly. Family is grateful. Family doesn't throw 45 years of memories in the trash as if they were waste. Mom, please." Scott stood up. "You are my mother. You owe us support. We're going through a tough time." Those words were the last straw. "I owe you support." My voice rose. "I gave you life. I paid for your school, your college. I gave you a roof over your head for 30 years. I opened the doors of this house to you when you needed it. And you know what? I don't owe you anything else. I paid my debt as a mother years ago." "But we're your family. You can't kick us out," Carly cried. "I can and I am. This house is mine. I paid for it. I decide who lives here. And it's not you two anymore." Scott collapsed onto the sofa. For the first time, I saw him truly look at me, as if after 8 months he was finally waking up. "Mom." His voice was a whisper. "I'm sorry. I am too." I felt the tears trying to escape, but I held them back. "I'm sorry it came to this, but you didn't leave me a choice." Carly was still crying with Camille in her arms. The baby started to fuss, sensing the tension. 30 days, I repeated. "If in that time you haven't found somewhere to live, I will proceed legally with the eviction, and believe me, you don't want it to come to that." I left the living room before they saw my tears fall. But something else was about to explode, something I didn't even know myself. I hadn't reached the middle of the stairs when I heard Carly scream. "This is your fault, Scott. I told you your mom was a bitter old woman. That's why your dad died from pure exasperation of living with her." I froze. Those words pierced me like bullets. I turned around slowly, very slowly. I went down each step with a calmness I didn't feel because inside I was boiling. "What did you just say?" I asked with a dangerously low voice. Carly realized her mistake. She tried to backpedal. "Ma, I didn't mean to repeat it." I took a step toward her. "Tell me again why my husband died." "Mom, leave it." Carly is nervous. Scott tried to intervene. "No." My shout made them both jump. I want to hear it from her mouth. "Do you think Robert died of exasperation from living with me?" Carly swallowed hard, but I had underestimated her. When she felt cornered, she attacked. "Well, look at how you keep this house. Old-fashioned, full of dirty dishes. Your house is ugly anyway. That's why I had to renovate it." Something in me broke, but not from pain, from absolute clarity. I walked to my desk in the dining room. I took out a folder I had prepared that morning after talking to Valerie. I had kept it there waiting for the right moment. And this was the moment. "You want to talk about ugly things, Carly? Let's talk about this." I opened the folder. I took out the bank statements with the charges marked in fluorescent yellow. One by one, I put them on the table. $1,850 for new dishes. With my card, $320 for clothes for you. With my card, $180 for makeup. With my card, $450 for home decoration. With my card, $600 for shoes and bags. With my card, I kept taking out papers. The piles grew on the table. You know what this is called, Carly? Fraud. Unauthorized use of a credit card. It's a criminal offense. Scott jumped up, snatching the papers from me. His eyes scanned the numbers, the dates, the charges. Carly, his voice trembled. Is this true? She didn't answer. She just stood there with Camille crying in her arms. Answer me! Scott yelled. Did you steal my mama's card? It's not stealing. She has plenty of money. Carly defended herself. She lives alone in this huge house collecting her pension. Why does she need so much? We have a baby, and that gives you the right. Scott was red with fury. That gives you the right to steal. Your mom owed us help. My mom told me when someone lends their house, they should do it completely, not half-heartedly. Your mom is selfish. Enough. Scott's shout made the walls vibrate. Stop it, Carly. For the first time in 8 months, I saw my son truly defend something. Defend me. But I wasn't finished. There's more. I pulled out another document. This is the call history from my landline, the one in the kitchen. See these calls marked in red? They're all to the bank. 32 calls in 3 months. Carly turned deathly pale. I received an email from the bank 2 weeks ago asking me if I had authorized a credit limit increase. I never requested that, but someone called pretending to be me. And the bank has those calls recorded. I took out one last paper, a screenshot of an email. You also intercepted my email, didn't you? The bank sent me a limit increase notification. I never received it until I checked my email account and found that someone had marked all the bank emails as read and moved them to the trash. Scott was looking at the papers as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Carly, tell me this isn't true. Please. She began to cry uncontrollably. Your mom has us living on scraps. She treats us like we owe her our lives. I only took what we deserved. You deserved nothing. My voice was icy. I opened my house to you. I fed you. I supported you. I gave you my bedroom, my space, my peace, and you repaid me by stealing from me, humiliating me, and throwing my history in the trash. I turned towards Scott. $3,400 in unauthorized purchases. But if we add up the utilities, the food, the use of my property, you owe me over $16,000. Mom, I didn't know, but you also chose not to see? I looked him directly in the eyes. You left every morning, leaving me alone with her. You never asked how I was. You never noticed that I wasn't cooking with garlic anymore, that I wasn't sewing, that I wasn't myself in my own house. Scott collapsed onto the sofa with his head in his hands. Carly was still crying, but now they were tears of rage, not remorse. You have 2 options. I held up 2 fingers. Pay the $3,400 of the unauthorized charges and leave in 15 days, not 30. Or I file the criminal complaint for fraud, and a judge resolves this. The silence that followed was deafening. Only Camille's crying and Carly's sobs could be heard, and I, standing in the middle of my living room in my house, finally recovering my voice. Carly slumped onto the sofa. Her crying changed. It was no longer rage. It was panic because she finally understood that I was serious. Ma, please. Her voice was choked. Don't do this. Think about Camille. She's your granddaughter. Are you really going to separate us? You separated yourself when you decided to steal from me. Scott lifted his head. His eyes were red. Mom, give me time. I'll pay you back everything, but don't file the complaint. Please. Carly wouldn't actually go to jail, would she? It depends on the judge, but with this evidence, it's very likely she would at least get a criminal record. And that means she couldn't work in many places or get credit or travel to certain countries. Carly started hyperventilating. No. Scott, do something. Tell your mom to stop. I should do something. Scott looked at her with an expression I had never seen on him. Where were you when my mom needed help? When she had that chest pain and you went out to lunch with your friends, leaving her alone? Where was your concern? Carly's eyes widened in surprise. How do you know that, Mrs.? Rodriguez told me yesterday. She ran into me at the store and asked how my mom was doing after the scare. I had no idea what she was talking about. I had to ask her. And I was embarrassed, Carly. Very embarrassed to know that my mom could have had a heart attack. And I didn't even find out because you didn't tell me anything. I just thought it was pure drama. My mom never makes a scene. Scott stood up. That's my mom. The woman who was widowed and raised this house alone. The one who worked 40 years to have something of her own. And you call her dramatic. It was the first time in 8 months that Scott defended something with such passion. I wish it had been sooner. I wish it hadn't had to come to this. Carly hugged herself, rocking Camille. My mom told me that when a mother-in-law offers her house, it's her obligation to support the whole family, that I didn't have to ask permission for anything because it was my right. And there it was. The truth behind everything. Your mom filled your head with wrong ideas, I said with exhaustion, and you believed them because they were convenient for you. Carly burst into tears again, but differently. This time there was some genuine remorse in her crying. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I don't know when everything got out of hand. At first, I just wanted to help with small changes. Then my mom kept telling me it was my chance to have nice things because you had money. And I never had much growing up. I always wanted to have pretty things, a nice house, and when I saw that you didn't say anything, I thought you didn't care. Of course I cared. I just didn't know how to set boundaries without seeming like the bad mother-in-law, without pushing away my son, without losing my granddaughter. Scott approached me. Mom, forgive me. Forgive me for not being present, for not seeing, for letting this happen. I looked at him. I saw the boy I raised, the man he had become. And I also saw his mistakes. I forgive you, son, but that doesn't change what needs to happen now, the $3,400. Scott nodded. I will pay you back. Even if I have to work triple shifts, even if it takes me a year, I swear I'll pay you back. You don't have a year. I want you to leave in 15 days. Okay, 15 days. We'll find something, whatever it takes, even a small room. But Mom, his voice broke. Don't file the complaint. Camille needs her mom and Carly. He looked at his wife. Carly made mistakes, but she's not a bad person. I looked at Carly. There she was, broken down with my granddaughter in her arms, tears falling uncontrollably. Was she a bad person? I didn't know. Maybe she was just a young woman, immature, ill-advised by a toxic mother. Maybe in other circumstances, we could have had a different relationship. But that didn't matter anymore. I won't file the complaint, I said finally, with 3 conditions. Both of them looked at me with hope. First, the $3,400 will be paid in installments, $200 monthly until the debt is completed. If you are late by a single month, I will proceed legally. I accept, Scott said immediately. Second, you leave in 15 days, not 30. And when you leave, you hand over the keys and any copies you might have made. I accept. Third, Carly will write me a letter by hand acknowledging everything she did, apologizing. She will give me that letter before leaving, and I will keep it. If you ever try to turn this against me, if you ever defame me to the family or say I was the bad guy, I will take out that letter. Carly looked up. She nodded through sobs. I'll do it. I swear I'll do it. Then we have a deal. I turned around to go up to my room, but before reaching the stairs, Scott stopped me. Mom, will you ever truly forgive us? I looked at him over my shoulder. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, son. And it also doesn't mean that things go back to how they were before. But yes, someday when you both demonstrate with actions, not with words, that you've learned. The next 15 days were the strangest of my life. Carly and Scott moved through the house like ghosts, packing in silence, looking for apartments online until late at night. There was no more loud music, no more demands, no more fake smiles, only an awkward and necessary silence. I didn't talk much either. I dedicated myself to slowly reclaiming my spaces. I took my sewing machines out of the basement. I cleaned the room that had been my workshop. I rehung the beige curtains in the living room. Mrs. Rodriguez came every afternoon to keep me company with coffee and donuts. How do you feel, dear? Strange, like I'm waking up from a long nightmare. You were, but it's over now. You've put things in order. On day 12, Carly knocked on my door. She held an envelope in her hands. Ma, here's the letter you asked for. I took it without opening it. Thank you. She remained standing there as if waiting for me to say something more. Is that all? She asked with a small voice. What else do you want me to say, Carly? I don't know. I thought maybe we could talk, that you would explain how to be better, how to fix this. I looked her directly in the eyes. It's not my job to teach you how to be respectful. You should have learned that years ago. And there's nothing to fix between us. There are only consequences to live with. Her eyes filled with tears again. Do you hate me? That question surprised me. I thought about it for a moment before answering. I don't hate you, Carly. Hate requires energy that I no longer have. I simply no longer trust you. And without trust, there can be no relationship. She left my room without saying anything else. Day 15 arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Scott rented a truck. Between him and a friend, they took down the few things they had brought 8 months ago. Now they had more, much more things they had bought with my money without my knowledge. They found an apartment in the Queens neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, $860 per foot, rent of $1,100 monthly. Scott would work 2 jobs to pay for it. Carly would have to look for a job too. Real life had finally caught up with them. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the truck was loaded. Scott came in one last time. Mom, everything's packed. We're leaving now. Good. Here are the keys. He placed them on the kitchen table. These are all of them. We didn't make copies. Thank you. There was a long silence. Scott wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Mom, I take care of your family, Scott. And don't forget the payments. The first day of every month I won't forget. He moved as if to hug me. I instinctively took a step back. Scott stopped. The pain on his face was evident. You're still very angry. I'm not angry. I'm tired and I need space. He nodded sadly. I love you, Mom. I love you too. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. He left the house. I stayed in the kitchen looking out the window. Carly got into the truck with Camille in her arms. Before closing the door, she looked at me. Our eyes met for a second. I raised my hand in a neutral gesture. Neither a warm goodbye nor a sign of anger, just an acknowledgement that this chapter was ending. She nodded slightly and closed the door and the truck drove off. I watched them turn the corner and disappear, and then the house fell silent. A different silence than before. It wasn't the silence of invasion, of fear, of walking on eggshells in your own house. It was the silence of peace. I stood there for a few more minutes. Then I slowly walked through every room. The living room. No toys scattered. No bottles on the table. The dining room. No forgotten diapers on the chairs. My master bedroom. Empty. The walls with marks where they had hung things. The floor with scratches from the crib. But it was mine again. I went down to the basement. My grandmother's furniture was still there. The photograph of my wedding, the mahogany bookshelf. You can come up now, I whispered. We're coming home again. That night, I slept in my marital bed for the first time in months. The sheets smelled new. I had to buy a complete set because Carly had taken the one she used. I lay down looking at the ceiling. The same ceiling that Robert and I looked at before going to sleep. The same one where we planned our dreams. I did it, honey, I said to the nothingness. I got our house back. I set boundaries. I defended myself. And for the first time in 8 months, I cried, but not from sadness. I cried from relief. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds singing. Not to Camille's crying. Not to Carly's heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. Not to the sound of the TV at full volume from 6. 00 in the morning. Just birds. I stayed in bed for a few more minutes, enjoying that precious silence. Then I got up, put on my favorite robe, the one Carly had hidden in the back of the closet because she said it was too old, and went down to the kitchen. I made a slow drip coffee with cinnamon and brown sugar the way I like it, without worrying if the smell bothered anyone. I sat by the window and slowly drank my coffee, watching the sun illuminate the garden, and I smiled. The first few days were about deep cleaning, not just physical, but emotional too. Mrs. Rodriguez came to help me. All right, dear. Where do we start with the master bedroom? I want it to be mine again. Between the two of us, we moved the crib Carly had left. We gave it to a pregnant neighbor. We removed the changing table, the rocker, the mini fridge. We sanded the marks on the walls. We painted them a light blue, which I had always liked but never dared to use. It looks beautiful, Elena. It looks like a hotel room. It looks like my room. That's what matters. I hired a locksmith, Mr. Miller, a 70-year-old man who had been changing locks in the neighborhood for 30 years. Elena, is everything okay? Why are you changing all the locks? Let's just say I need to start over, Mr. Miller. He understood without more questions. In 2 hours, the entire house had new locks. $120 well invested in peace of mind. I brought up the furniture from the basement with the help of Mrs. Rodriguez's son. The mahogany bookshelf returned to its place by the window. The photograph of my wedding went back to the main shelf. My grandmother's sideboard regained its spot in the dining room. It was as if the house breathed a sigh of relief. But I also needed help, not just physical. I looked online for therapists in the area. I found Dr. Laura Hills, a specialist in family therapy and boundary management. My first appointment was on a Tuesday afternoon. Elena, tell me what brings you here. And I told her everything from Scott's call asking for help to the day I kicked them out without omitting details, without sugarcoating anything. Dr. Hills listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded. Do you know what you did, Elena? Something many women of your generation never managed to do. You set boundaries. You said enough. You chose your well-being over guilt. But I feel bad. I feel like I failed as a mother. You didn't fail. You taught them the most important lesson, that love doesn't mean allowing abuse, that respect is the foundation of every relationship, that you matter too. Those words lifted a weight I didn't know I was carrying. I started going every week, $85 per session, the best money I've ever spent in my life. I reclaimed my sewing room. I took out my fabrics, my patterns, my Singer machine that I inherited from my mom. The hum of the machine filled my soul. I made tablecloths. I repaired clothes for the neighbors. I embroidered napkins with initials, not because I needed the money, but because I needed to create again. One afternoon, Mrs. Rodriguez arrived with a small box. Look what I brought you, dear. Inside was a small kitten, gray with black stripes, huge green eyes. She appeared in my yard. She's all alone, and I thought you were too. You'd be good company. I picked her up. She was so tiny she fit in my hand. She immediately purred. Hello, little one. What should I call you? The kitten looked at me with those eyes that looked like two moons. Luna, your name will be Luna. And so Luna moved in with me. She slept in my bed. She followed me all over the house. She curled up in my lap while I sewed. For the first time in months, the house felt alive again, but alive with my energy, not with the invasion of others. On the first day of the following month, the doorbell rang. It was a delivery guy with an envelope. Inside were $200 in cash and a note from Scott. First monthly payment. Promise kept. I love you, Mom. I put the money in a jar, not because I desperately needed it, but because it was proof that they were learning. Little by little, the house stopped smelling of conflict and returned to smelling like cinnamon, freshly brewed coffee, and the flowers in the garden. And I stopped being the frightened Elena who tiptoed around her own house. I went back to being simply Elena, owner of her space, owner of her peace, owner of her life. 6 months passed like a sigh. 6 months of peace, of morning coffee without rushing, of sewing late without anyone telling me the machine noise was bothering them, of cooking with all the garlic I wanted. Luna grew up. She was no longer that gray ball that fit in my hand. Now she was an elegant cat who claimed the sofa as if she were a queen. "At least you're grateful, right, Luna?" she purred in response. Scott's payments arrived punctually every month. $200 in an envelope, always with a brief note. Not one was ever missed. We had $1,800 paid off. $1,600 remained. But that Thursday in October, everything changed. I was watering the garden plants when I heard the doorbell. Luna ran to hide. She was still afraid of strangers. I opened the door. It was Scott, but not the Scott from 6 months ago, looking tired and distant. This Scott looked different. Thinner, yes, but with clearer eyes, more awake. "Hi, Mom." "Scott." I stayed in the doorway without inviting him in. "Can we talk?" "Just 5 minutes, I promise." I hesitated, but something in his gaze made me nod. 5 minutes. We sat in the living room. He looked at everything with nostalgia. "You put everything back the way it was before, the way it always should have been." He nodded without defending himself. "Mom, I came to tell you something, and I don't want you to think it's for my own gain or to look good. I'm listening." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. He placed it on the coffee table. "Here are the $1,600 that were left. All of it. We don't owe you anything anymore." I stared at the envelope without touching it. "Scott, the agreement was $200 a month. Where did you get this money?" "I sold my car. It was the right thing to do. I couldn't keep paying in trickles something that Carly and I have owed for months. I needed to close this debt to truly start over." I looked at him with new eyes. This was the son I had raised, the responsible one, the one who owned his mistakes. "Carly is working," he continued. "She got a job at a clothing store. She doesn't earn much, but it helps. And I have 2 jobs, one part-time as an engineer and another at night supervising a construction site. We're tired, Mom. Very tired, but we are learning. And Camille." His face softened when he heard his daughter's name. "She's good, big, beautiful. She's already walking. She's saying words. She asks about you sometimes. She points at the photos and says, 'Grandma, I felt a lump in my throat. Do you talk to her about me?' Of course. We tell her that Grandma Alela Nina is a strong woman who taught us to be better, and when she's older, we'll tell her the whole truth so she can learn." I took the envelope. I opened it. I opened indeed $1,600 in bills. You didn't have to rush to pay everything. Yes, I did. Because as long as I owed you money, we were still tied to the mistake, and I needed to close that chapter to be able to ask you for something. What is it? Scott took a deep breath. "Give me permission to visit you once a month. Have a coffee. Talk. Nothing more. Not ask you for anything. Not bring problems. Just reconnect as mother and son. And Carly, she understands that she has to earn your trust again. She won't look for you. But she did ask me to tell you something." "What?" "That, thank you. That if you hadn't kicked her out of here, she would have never learned what it means to work for what you have. That she would have never matured. That what she felt was cruelty at the time, she now sees as the push she needed." I was surprised to hear that. Did she really say that? She did. She's in therapy too, with a therapist her boss recommended. She's working on her problems with her mom, learning to set boundaries, understanding why she did what she did. We were silent for a moment. Luna peeked out from the hallway, assessing whether Scott was safe. "That's Luna," I said, pointing to the cat. "She's pretty? Does she keep you company?" "Very much. And she doesn't criticize my dishes." Scott let out a sad laugh. "Mom, I'm sorry for everything, not just for the money or for leaving you alone. Sorry for not seeing that you were suffering, for not defending the house where I grew up, for forgetting everything you taught me about respect. You already said sorry months ago." "I know, but now I say it differently. Now I truly mean it because now I know what it costs to survive, to pay bills, to support a family. And I understand everything you did for me for 30 years. His voice cracked. I saw tears in his eyes. And I understand how much it must have hurt you to see me choose Carly over you. Not because a son shouldn't defend his wife, but because I didn't defend anyone. I just closed my eyes and let everything happen. I got up from the sofa. Scott also stood up waiting. I took a step toward him and I hugged him. I hugged him tightly like when he was a child and had nightmares. Like when he graduated from college. Like when he introduced me to Carly for the first time, full of hope. He hugged me back, crying on my shoulder. I love you, Mom. And I love you, son. Always, but now with boundaries. With boundaries, he repeated. I understand. We separated, both with red eyes. You can come once a month on Sundays at 11 o'clock. You bring donuts and I'll make the coffee. His smile lit up his face. Really? Really, but only you for now. Carly and Camille, I need more time. I understand perfectly. And Mom, thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. He left with a lighter step. I watched him walk away from the window. Luna jumped onto the sofa next to me. Did he look good, Luna? She purred. I assumed that was a yes. Almost 2 years have passed since that Tuesday when I found my dishes in the trash. 2 years since I said the words that would change everything. Well, you'll be using those in your new house because you aren't staying here anymore. Today is Sunday, 11 o'clock in the morning. Scott rings the doorbell, punctual as always. He brings a bag of donuts from the local bakery. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, son. Come in. We sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where everything started. But now it smells of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries. Luna jumps onto Scott's lap, purring. Has she adopted you now? I say, smiling. It's because she knows I love her. We talked about everything, about his job. He only has one now, better paid. About Camille, who is already 3 years old and talks nonstop. About Carly, who was promoted to store manager. After an hour, Scott looked at me seriously. Mom, there's something I want to ask you, and it's okay if you say no. Tell me. Camille turns 3 next month. We're having a small party at the park. Would you come? Carly wants to see you. She wants Camille to really know you, not just in photos. I remained silent for a moment, thinking in these 2 years I have worked hard on myself, on healing, on understanding that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person, that saying no is an act of self-love. But I have also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means releasing the poison so it doesn't sicken my soul. I'll go, but only for 2 hours, and Carly and I will talk alone before the party. Really, thou? Scott brightened up. Really, but with clear conditions. This doesn't mean everything has gone back to how it was before. It means I'm willing to build something new, different, healthier. Mom, you don't know what this means to us. And you don't know what it meant to me to get my life back. Scott nodded. He understood. He finally understood. After he leaves, I stay alone in the kitchen. I take down that box I stored 2 years ago from the high shelf, my cobalt blue dinnerware. The one I rescued from the trash, the one I washed with so much care, the one I thought I would never use again because it hurts too much. But a few months ago, I did something special with it. I took it to an artisan who works with the Japanese technique kintsugi, that ancient technique where they repair broken pottery by filling the cracks with gold. They don't hide the breaks, they celebrate them. They turn them into art. The artisan repaired every chip, every crack. Now my plates have golden lines that shine with the light. They are more beautiful than before because the scars tell their story. I take out a plate, the one Robert dropped so many years ago. Now the chip is sealed with a line of gold that looks like a small river. I pour myself a coffee. I sit by the window with my blue and gold porcelain plate. Luna jumps onto my lap. And I think about everything I went through, how I got lost in the silence, how I recovered my voice. How I almost forgot who Elena was to please others. I look at the garden that Robert and I planted. The flowers continue to grow. Some dried up and we had to pull them out, but others sprouted stronger like me. I look at myself in the reflection of the window. 70 years old now. Completely white hair. Lines on my face that tell stories, but my eyes shine differently. They shine like the gold on my dinnerware. And I want to tell you something. You who have listened to me all this time. If you are living in your own house feeling like a visitor, if someone is erasing your history because they don't value it, if they tell you that you are dramatic for wanting respect in your own space, listen to me closely. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not a bad mother-in-law, bad person for saying enough is enough. True love doesn't ask you to annul yourself. It asks you to respect yourself first so you can respect others. I learned that my dishes were not just porcelain. They were the proof that I had existed, that I had loved, that my life had value. And when someone threw them in the trash, they didn't just discard dishes. They discarded my dignity. But I rescued it piece by piece. I cleaned it. I repaired it. I turned it into something more valuable. And I did the same with myself. I rescued myself from the emotional garbage heap where they had thrown me. I cleansed myself of the guilt. I repaired myself with therapy and boundaries, and now I shine differently, not stronger, differently, with the scars visible, with the gold of lessons learned, because what is broken can be even more beautiful when you decide that you deserve to be repaired. I raise my coffee cup. I toast to the window, to life, to myself, to the women who say enough, to those who reclaim their house, to those who learn that saying no is a complete sentence. To those who discover that true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. Luna meows. I think she agrees. And I, Elelynina Johnson, 70 years old, retired accountant, owner of her house and her destiny, sip that coffee, savoring every drop. Because finally, after all this time, I came home to my true home, the one I carry within. If this story touched something in your heart, if it made you reflect on your own boundaries, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching us from. Did you identify with Elelynina? Have you experienced something similar? I would love to read your thoughts. And if these life stories of women who find their strength when all seems lost inspire you, subscribe to the channel. Here we share stories that remind us that it is never too late to reclaim our dignity. Give this video a thumbs up if Elelynina taught you that self-love is not selfishness. I'll see you in the next story. And remember, your dishes, your memories, your life are not trash to anyone. See you soon.